joined this morning by Cindy Yu from The Times and Jamie Klinger, founder of Reclaim These Streets. A very good morning to both of you. So we're going to kick off with the front page of the Financial Times, Jamie, aren't we? And a number of striking headlines concerning Donald Trump. One about him threatening EU with tariffs of 50%, but also of interest, the fight he's got with Harvard at the moment. So talk us through this, because this is on the front page, headlined class warfare.
So within hours of the original ruling saying that Harvard had to have no international students, which meant 7,000 students were told to enroll elsewhere. And anybody that knows, like, you're an international student, you spent your whole life trying to get into Harvard, and all of a sudden you're told, go somewhere else. And that's been blocked within hours. But now they're doing an entire fight back and forth about whether or not the government can block international students. And for an organization that has that kind of funding from the government and from other governments and from scientists, getting rid of your entire international student body for America First is insane. I met with representatives from my alumni this week, and they're just talking about what it means to the educational department of the entire country, what it means to medical research across the board.
Well, yes, and talking to some students who heard the news that the Trump administration was trying to put a ban on foreign students at Harvard, they were saying they were days away from their graduation and were worried that they might have to leave the country. So lots of uncertainty there. So as you say, the judge has issued a restraining order blocking this plan for the time being. But remind us what this is all about, because this is about the Trump administration concerned about some that they see as being activists that allowed freedom of speech without being punished. That's their argument, isn't it?
Yes, there's been a whole freedom of speech row on American campuses, but not from the students themselves, but from the current incumbent government. With the entire situation in Gaza, there has obviously been a lot of student action in support of Palestine over the last year or so. And the Trump administration has basically been in this ongoing war with various campuses to say, you have to crack down on these students, especially if they're foreign students supporting Palestine. They have to have some kind of rights removed. And Harvard has been very much sticking up for its foreign student population. And this is how we've ended up here. I mean, what Trump has done in the last month with his global tariffs in terms of losing American credibility with its international trading partners, I think we're seeing that now, but with the international student community. How can you trust American campuses now when, even if this thing gets overturned, I think the uncertainty of it will just last throughout the rest of this term. You know, you speak to any students who are thinking about studying abroad right now, and it is very front and centre of their mind.
And it's hugely financially important for Harvard, isn't it, to have foreign students who pay more in their tuition fees than domestic students?
Absolutely. And it's the tourism, but, like, parents aren't going to want to send their kids to America if you can't even visit and feel comfortable, let alone sending your kids for their education. And this is like lifelong dreams for people. They've spent all this time getting ready, and they're just being told to go elsewhere. It's just not how it works, and it's quite disheartening, to say the very least.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes. As you say, there's a stay of execution, if you like, for the time being. But how that pans out, we'll have to wait and see. In the meantime, take us to some UK headlines. On the front of the Eye, Cindy, they have a headline here saying that the Labour rebels pretty uncomfortable with the direction that they feel the leadership is taking them, particularly on welfare.
Yeah, so we're starting to see the cracks in the Labour Party now after their honeymoon phase, which, you know, didn't actually last as long as they probably would have hoped anyway. But this comes after the first major U-turn by the government this week on the winter fuel allowance, which is, you know, basically promising to look again at it. It's not quite a U-turn, but when you show that kind of vulnerability, the backbenchers and the frontbenchers now, it seems, are pushing further, because we've got £5 billion worth of welfare cuts coming down the line later this year, already announced. But, you know, if they U-turn on the winter fuel allowance, these MPs are thinking, why not on the disability benefits too, when they are much more drastic and arguably more targeted at some of the more marginalised in society, like the disabled. And so we are now seeing the beginning of a backbench revolt. The Eye says that actually it understands up to 5 members of the front bench are also unhappy about it, but no one has quite put their head above the parapet yet. So this is kind of rumblings of off-the-record rebellion at the moment.
Well, yes, and when it comes to a vote on these reforms, I mean, the government has a big majority. Presumably, the rebellion wouldn't be big enough to stop that, but it could do some damage.
It could definitely do some serious damage, and that's I think the main political result of the winter fuel allowance U-turn is that you've shown what we in Westminster might call weakness, and now they want to keep pushing.
And that takes us to the Guardian's front page as well, doesn't it, Jamie? Because they say that the flagship, as they call it, child poverty strategy could be delayed. It was promised in the spring. It was expected to come in June, around the time of the spending review, but it looks like it's been pushed back. And one of the key elements of that some of these backbench Labour MPs want is a lifting of the two-child benefit cap. So the question of whether or not that'll happen or not.
And that's what they're saying, is that Keir does not want to have his name next to anything saying that he's pushed more children into poverty. But all of these stories added together in the middle of a crisis and people being worried about what they're doing with their children, what they're doing with their futures, it just adds to the uncertainty that everybody is walking on eggshells and really concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to live the lifestyle they want to live and be able to feed their children and school their children.
Well, yeah, and I mean, this is a really tricky one, isn't it? Because the government has made it very clear how tight public finances are, Cindy. They don't have much room for manoeuvre on that front.
Yeah.
And this is costly.
Absolutely.
And on the other hand, there's a suggestion in here that some of Keir Starmer's advisors might be saying, actually, it's quite a popular policy amongst some people because they see it as being fair.
So again, the fractures are happening really at the top of the Labour Party now, because this inquiry, if it had come through with a policy recommendation to scrap the two-child benefit cap, would have been coming from Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, and Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary. Neither of them hold the purse strings, right? So Treasury, this is not coming from the Treasury. At the same time, there's an anonymous source talking to The Guardian about how this policy would be good, while saying that Morgan McSweeney, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, is against it. So there's a bit of, jiggery-pokery going on here.
Yeah, and it's seen as being one of the single most effective ways of reducing child poverty, isn't it? So it will be very interesting to see what decision they make on that. We're out of time for this hour, but you'll both be back next hour. So for the moment, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
A show of military might and menace.